She stood barefoot on the burning deck of a doomed space station, smiling like she knew how it would all end. Behind her, flames licked the walls. Ahead of her, 3 armored enemies hesitated, not because she was armed, but because she wasn't afraid. Captain Rhea Kincaid was supposed to be dead, declared lost in a mission that never officially happened. So why had she just triggered the station's self-destruct and called in the Union fleet? What was buried beneath Veltrax Prime that she was willing to risk war to uncover? And why? After all this time, was she smiling? Before we start, please, subscribe to the channel by clicking the car button on the top right corner now, and hit the notification bell so you can get amazing daily stories as and when published. Please do comment your views about the story or any topic that you want to get a story on. We will make it happen. Let's dive in the story. Why is she smiling? Commander Drax muttered under his breath, claws twitching on the armrest of his command seat. The station's security feed crackled with static, then came into focus, showing Captain Rhea Kincaid standing alone in the main corridor of Veltrax Prime's lower deck. Blood streaked the walls. The deck was flickering under emergency lights. A dead Zarnax elite lay motionless at her feet, the plasma wound on its chest still smoking. She wasn't flinching. She wasn't running. She was smiling. Drax's second-in-command, Lieutenant Aaron Salas, leaned closer to the monitor, his pale fingers tightening on the edge of the console. "She's not even armored," he said quietly. "No shield belt. No squad. Just standing there." "Asked a question, Lieutenant," Drax growled, his golden eyes narrowing. "Why is a Terran smiling in the middle of a war zone?" Salas swallowed. "Because, sir, she knows something we don't." 3 hours earlier, Captain Rhea Kincaid stepped off the unauthorized freighter that had docked under diplomatic clearance. She hit the deck with calm, confident strides, red hair pulled into a tight knot, eyes scanning the bay like she could see through steel. Her boots made soft echoes as she walked down the desolate corridor. "No guards, no alarms, no one. Too quiet," she murmured. A sarcastic, synthetic voice buzzed in her earpiece. "Captain, you say that every time. Maybe one day, you'll walk into a trap that isn't actually a trap." "Unlikely, Iris," Rhea replied with a dry smile. "But if I do, I hope you'll be polite enough to record my heroic death. I'll play you out with a marching band." She passed a shattered bulkhead. Blood smeared across the floor, long streaks leading deeper into the facility. She paused. "Combat, close range. No blaster resido." "They didn't shoot. They used blades," Iris finished. "Sound like signature. You sure this is where you want to be? I didn't come back from the dead to second-guess myself. Technically, you never died. Tell that to the Union's death records." She continued forward, stopping near a security panel, blinking red. She placed her palm over it, bypassing the lock in seconds. As the door slid open, a cold voice echoed through the chamber. "Early. Typical Terran trait." Rhea stepped inside slowly, her pistol still holstered. "Would have sent a gift, but your last party blew up half my squad." From the shadows stepped Sereth Vynen, draped in a long obsidian cloak, golden eyes gleaming. Her cybernetic tendrils hovered like snakes, twitching behind her with unreadable emotion. "You're as reckless as ever," Sereth said, her voice smooth and sharp. "Or maybe just tired of being irrelevant." "You try to kill me," Rhea said, voice steady. "I tried to elevate you. You failed." There was a pause. Then a grin split Rhea's face. "Guess what, Sereth? I'm here to return the favor." Sereth's eyes narrowed. "Then let's begin." Sereth Vynen circled Rhea like a panther measuring its prey. Her boots made no sound on the cold metal floor, but the low hum of her cybernetic tendrils filled the silence. "You really should have stayed dead, Rhea," she said, voice soft but laced with venom. "You were a legend. A ghost. Now you're just inconvenient." Rhea rolled her shoulders, unfazed. You talk too much. Sareth tilted her head. Is that what passes for wit in the Terran military now? No, that's what passes for stalling. Rhea's hand moved in a blur. A tiny disc slid from her sleeve, bounced once across the floor, and exploded in a flash of white. Eyes, Sareth shouted. Too late. Rhea was already moving, diving through the smoke, grabbing a metal bar from a broken wall panel, and swinging it like a hammer. Sareth ducked, barely, her tendrils slicing through the air in retaliation. Sparks flew as metal clashed with synthetic nerve fiber. They broke apart just as fast, breathing heavily, the air between them crackling with energy. That was rude, Sareth hissed. Thought you liked surprises. I'm a surprise. Behind Rhea, a red light blinked to life on the wall. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Rhea smiled. Yep, and now you're the distraction. A series of distant thuds echoed through the corridor. Then alarms. Then chaos. You triggered the fail-safes, Sareth said, stunned. You didn't even wait to see if I'd let you walk out alive. I never planned for things I wouldn't bet on. Sareth's face twisted. You're insane. I get that a lot. Back in the control chamber, Commander Drax slammed a fist on the console. Pull up her vitals. Now, Aaron Salas scrambled, fingers dancing across the interface. The feed flickered and revealed Rhea's biometric data. Elevated heart rate, elevated adrenaline, but no fear. No panique. She's in complete control, Salas whispered. No one fights like that without a plan, Drax growled. What the hell is she after? Just then, a side door opened behind them. A new figure stepped inside, tall, pale, draped in a gray uniform lined with crimson. Vice Commander Talvek, Drax's political overseer. She's not here for sabotage, Talvek said. She's here for retrieval. Drax turned sharply. Retrieval? Of what? Talvek smiled thinly. Someone, or something. And you let her in, Commander. Under your watch. The implication hung heavy in the air. Drax clenched his jaw. Then I'll be the one to drag her out. You'll need backup. I'll need answers. Back on Deck 7, Rhea ducked behind a fallen beam as Sareth's energy blade carved molten lines through the wall. Why won't you just die like a good soldier? Sareth shouted. Rhea peeked out, breathing hard. Because I didn't come here to die. Her eyes locked on a small, blinking beacon half buried beneath the debris. I came to finish what I started. Commander Drax Thaler stormed into the observation bay, his heavy boots slamming against the deck. The glass viewport ahead showed a panoramic sweep of Veltrax Prime's lower sectors, now flickering with internal fire and chaos. Lieutenant Aaron Salas trailed behind, tablet clutched in both hands. She's turned half the station into a maze of broken conduits and locked bulkheads. We can't predict her movement. Because you're thinking like a soldier, Drax snarled. She's not operating tactically. She's hunting. Hunting who? Drax stared out over the burning sector, eyes narrowing. That's what I intend to find out. Inside a fractured maintenance tunnel 2 decks below, Rhea crouched beside the blinking beacon. She pulled it from the rubble with a grunt, wiped dust from the surface, and activated it. A soft, 3-tone chime echoed from the device, followed by a blinking red holographic arrow. She smiled. Still works? God bless Martian engineering. Iris crackled in her ear. That's Beacon 3. Only one left unaccounted for. They were smart, scattered them under fake designators. Just like we planned. You know what I'm going to ask? Ask it anyway. You sure they're alive? Rhea paused, her eyes dimming for a beat. I wasn't sure I'd make it off Halcyon Abyss either, but someone pulled me out of that wreck. Someone believed I was worth saving. Iris went quiet. Then, all right, Captain, let's go save your ghosts. As she moved through the ruined corridor, a vent above creaked. Rhea froze. Then she dived sideways, just as a blast from a Zarnax railgun tore through the floor where she'd stood. A massive reptilian trooper dropped down, snarling, blue armor catching the dim light. You're trespassing, he growled. Rhea rolled behind a steel crate and fired once, twice. Sparks flew, but the trooper kept advancing. Your kind doesn't know when to quit. Maybe, Rhea said, popping up and tossing a flash grenade. The blast lit up the tunnel in white. But we do know how to end things. She vaulted over the crate as the trooper reeled, delivering a spinning heel kick to the side of his head. The crunch echoed loud, and the soldier collapsed. Rhea exhaled hard, flexing her fingers. Still got it. Iris sighed. You're getting too old for this, you know. I'm 35. Exactly. Meanwhile, back in the command chamber, Vice Commander Talvex scrolled through security data with a frown. Why is she going downward? Drax crossed his arms. She's following something. These old utility tunnels, some were decommissioned years ago. Salas chimed in. There are sealed labs in the lower levels, mostly used for classified storage. Rumor says some Union black sites are hidden down there. Talvex's eyes glinted. Black sites. Drax looked up, realization flickering in his expression. She's not just retrieving someone. She's waking something up. Salas frowned. Sir, Drax turned, his voice low and serious. She's not here to sabotage Veltrax Prime. She's here to ignite it. Rhea slipped through the narrow conduit, boots clanging softly against the rusted metal grates. The air was thick with dust, and every breath tasted like old copper and smoke. The beacon's red arrow pulsed brighter now. She was close. Too close. Warning, Iris whispered in her earpiece. Thermal scans show multiple heat signatures 2 corridors ahead. Heavy armor. Waiting. Ambush. Definitely. Rhea exhaled through her nose, wiped sweat from her brow, and checked the charge on her plasma sidearm. Perfect. Let's ruin their surprise. She emerged from the maintenance duct like a shadow, pressed her back against the wall, and peeked around the corner. 3 Zarnax soldiers crouched low, weapons trained on the far corridor, waiting for her to come from the obvious path. Rhea smiled. Time for some chaos. She ducked back and pulled a small device from her belt, a sonic detonator, non-lethal but disorienting as hell. She armed it, waited for the precise heartbeat between their breaths, then lobbed it into the corridor and dropped to the floor. The explosion wasn't loud. It was felt more than heard. A sickening pulse of sound rippled through the walls. The soldiers reeled, claws clutching at their heads, weapons dropping as their balance shattered. Rhea was already moving. She surged forward, striking the first trooper with a knee to the jaw, spinning, elbowing the second in the throat, then sweeping the legs from the third. They went down like falling trees. She stood over them, panting. Never wait for a Terran in a blind spot, she muttered. We invent new exits. As she continued down the hallway, the beacon pulsed one final time and turned green. Ahead, a sealed vault door stood embedded in the wall. Thick, black, etched with symbols she hadn't seen in years. She stepped closer. Her fingers trembled slightly. Iris, confirming biometric lock. DNA, signature matches. Rhea Kincaid, authorization accepted. The door hissed, gears grinding, metal groaning from years of disuse. A gust of cold air swept past her, thick with sterilization gas. Inside, the lights flickered to life, revealing 6 cryopods. 6. Rhea's throat tightened. They were still here. Captain, Iris said quietly, all pods show minimal life support, but there's a pulse. Rhea walked to the first pod, laying a hand against the frosted glass. Inside, Lieutenant Kara Voss floated in stasis, her face peaceful, unchanged from the day they were separated on Halcyon Abyss. They lied, Rhea whispered. The whole damn Union. Suddenly, behind her, a slow clap echoed off the metal walls. She turned, gun drawn. Sareth Vinen stood at the doorway, arms folded, flanked by 2 more armored troopers. You really don't disappoint, Sareth said, eyes gleaming. But I had a feeling this was your endgame. I don't leave people behind. Sareth smiled. And yet, you just led me straight to them. Rhea's jaw clenched. I didn't come here alone. Oh, Sareth raised a brow. You brought friends? No, Rhea said, tapping her wrist console. I brought the Union fleet. Sareth's smirk vanished as the lights flickered. Then came the rumble, deep and distant, followed by a tremor that rippled through the floor. Sirens wailed. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in crimson. What did you do? She hissed. Rhea didn't answer. She tapped her wrist console again, and the cryopods behind her began to unlock one by one with soft hissing sounds. You just signaled your own destruction, Sareth snapped, motioning to her guards. Take her down. The first trooper lunged. Rhea ducked low, swept his legs out, and drove her elbow into his throat as he hit the floor. He twitched once, then went still. The second raised his plasma rifle, too slow. Rhea rolled, grabbed a loose pipe from the ground, and flung it. The metal bar smacked the rifle aside as she closed the gap, kicked the weapon from his grip, and slammed him against the wall with a force that made Sareth flinch. Still think I need help? Rhea asked, breathing hard. Sareth's golden eyes narrowed. Underestimated you. Everyone does. That's the trick. One of the cryopods clicked open behind them. A cough echoed through the chamber. Rhea turned as Kara Voss slowly opened her eyes inside the pod, disoriented but alive. Kara, Rhea whispered, moving to her side. It's okay. You're safe. I'm here. Kara blinked, then smiled faintly. You look like hell, Cap. Rhea laughed, her voice tight with emotion. You should see the other guys. Suddenly, a voice crackled through Sareth's earpiece. Operative VYNN. Incoming Union fleet. 9 warships, dropping from FDL above the station. Rhea raised her eyebrows. Told you. Sareth snarled. This station isn't defensible. Not from that kind of force. Then I suggest you run. Sareth hesitated, then turned and fled, her cloak whipping behind her. Rhea didn't give chase. She turned back to Kara, gently helping her out of the pod. Systems rebooting the other 5, Iris reported. Give it 90 seconds and they'll all be conscious. Good. Patch me through to the flagship. A moment later, Admiral Reese's voice came through, sharp and clear. Kincaid, is it done? Almost. I've recovered the asset. 6 in total. Sareth is fleeing. Recommend strike protocol on her vessel. Already locked. An Admiral, yes. This facility is a black site, full of classified data. If the Zarnax get back inside, they won't, Reese interrupted. Once you're clear, we're lighting it up. Rhea looked around the chamber. At her team. At Kara, blinking back tears. At the other pods beginning to stir. This time, she said softly, we all go home. A low voice came from the doorway. You're not the only one who changed sides. Rhea turned sharply. Commander Drax stepped into the room, rifle in hand, 2 of his elite guards behind him. She raised her weapon instinctively. He held up his hands. I'm not here to fight. Then why are you here? She asked coldly. To repay a debt, he said simply. You saved this station from inside the fire. I couldn't just stand outside and watch it burn. Rhea stared at him, surprised. Drax lowered his voice. Tell me where you need me. The chamber shook again, this time harder. Dust rained from the ceiling as the cryopods fully unlocked with synchronized hisses, releasing the rest of Rhea's long-lost team from stasis. Groggy, pale but alive, Kara glanced around, still leaning on Rhea's shoulder. Did we win something? Or is this the afterlife? You're not dead, Rhea smirked. Not yet, anyway. I knew that wine on Halcyon tasted cursed. From the corner of the chamber, Commander Drax's voice rumbled. We have less than 15 minutes before this place becomes a fireball. Enemy reinforcements just docked on the lower hangar. We need an extraction route. Rhea checked her wrist display, then looked up at him. You still know this station better than anyone. I helped build it. Then your lead navigator. Get us to Hangar Bay 12. There's a stealth shuttle waiting, marked Echo Seraph. Cloaked. Iris will ping the landing beacon when we're 2 decks out. Drax nodded and turned to his guards. You heard the captain. Form a defensive wedge. Prioritize cover fire and pod evac. The guards moved without hesitation. Not a question, not a protest. Rhea raised a brow. Didn't think the lizard had it in him. Drax gave a faint growl. We're not all brainless war beasts. Just most of us. You're making progress. He grunted. You're making me regret this. They moved fast, Rhea helping the groggy survivors down the corridor, while Drax led the way through partially collapsed passages. The station groaned around them like a dying animal, sparks flying from overhead conduits. Behind them, the pounding of armored boots echoed, Zarnak's reinforcements closing in. Kara stumbled. I'm slowing you down. Leave me behind. Say that again. Rhea snapped, pulling her arm tighter around Kara's waist. And I'll leave you behind in a locked closet until the war ends. Kara gave a breathless laugh. You haven't changed. Damn right. A blast rang out. One of Drax's guards took a hit to the shoulder, but stayed on his feet. They're ahead too, the guard shouted. Blocking the corridor junction. Options? Drax asked. Rhea looked to the side, spotted a maintenance shaft half-ripped open by a previous blast. There, shaft 47A. It leads to the service elevators. Drax glanced at it, then back at the firepower bearing down on them. It's vertical. We climb, Rhea said firmly. With no time to argue, the team scrambled into the shaft, lifting each other one by one. Kara was passed carefully up by Drax himself, who braced with one arm and hoisted her like she weighed nothing. Appreciate the assist, Commander, she breathed. Save you thanks, he said. Wait till we survive. As the last of the team cleared the shaft, Rhea dropped a thermal charge at the bottom. She looked down one final time and whispered, Not this time, Seraph. Then she climbed up, sealed the hatch, and the explosion roared beneath them, shaking the entire deck and cutting off the pursuing troops. Ahead, Iris buzzed in her ear. Shuttles prepped. 5 minutes till ignition. Copy that, Rhea replied. Tell them we're bringing ghosts back from the dead. The stealth shuttle Echo, Seraph trembled as its engines roared to life. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with adrenaline, sweat, and the sharp scent of scorched metal. Kara sat buckled in beside Rhea, her breathing still shaky, face pale but alert. How's the team? Rhea asked, glancing at the others, groggy but alive. All 5 of her once-thought-dead squad mates huddled around the rear cabin. Awake, Kara said, but not talking much. They don't need to talk, Rhea murmured. Not yet. They're still remembering how to be alive. From the cockpit, Drax's voice came through the intercom. We're clear of the station. Trajectory locked. Fleet commanders on Channel 3. Rhea stood, steady despite the shuttle's slight turbulence, and walked to the comms console. Iris, patch me through. Admiral Reese's face appeared on the screen, eyes sharp, jaw tight. Report. Package retrieved, Rhea said. All 6 accounted for. Station is compromised. Seraph escaped, but her forces are scattered. Recommend immediate orbital strike. Already queued, Reese replied. You've done it, Kincaid. You brought them back. There was a pause. But I have to ask how? Rhea looked back at her team. Kara met her eyes, gave a faint nod. They all deserve the truth. She turned to the Admiral. I never believed the reports, she said. They told me everyone died on Halcyon Abyss, but the evidence never added up. Sealed logs, redacted footage, an entire mission erased like it never existed. So you staged your death, Reese said, leaning forward. I had to, Rhea said softly. The only way to find them was to vanish. No one was going to approve a rescue. Not for ghosts. Reese exhaled slowly. You disobeyed direct orders. Crossed into restricted sectors. Lied to high command. I did, and I'd do it again. The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. Good. The comm cut out. Rhea turned, just as Drax entered the cabin. His armor was scraped, one shoulder burned, but his expression calm. We just received confirmation, he said. Union fleet is commencing orbital strike. Through the rear viewport, the stars lit up, Tiny flashes that marked the beginning of the end for Veltrax Prime. The station crumbled in silence, swallowed by light, and then gone. Kara let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Feels weird," she said, seeing it destroyed. Rhea sat beside her again. It was a graveyard. "Still, you saved us." "You saved me first," Rhea whispered. This was me returning the favor. Drax stood near the doorway, arms crossed. "You humans are strange. We get that a lot." His voice softened. "But I've never fought beside anyone like you." Rhea met his eyes. "Guess that makes us even." "No," Drax said. "Not yet. The Union just assigned me as your new operations liaison." Rhea blinked. "You're serious?" "I requested it." She smirked. "Then buckle up, Commander. It only gets worse from here." He smiled back, slow, toothy, genuine. "I'm counting on it." And as the stars stretched around them and the shuttle raced into hyperspace, Rhea Kincaid leaned back in her seat, finally allowing herself to breathe. The mission was over, but the war had just begun. Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.